And of course, the number one thing people asked me about this summer was what happened to Stephen Colbert at CBS. CBS all of a sudden, out of the blue, claimed the Late Show was losing $40 million a year and then miraculously got FCC approval to sell their company, which is what they wanted. And I guess that wasn't enough for El Presidente because he posted, the word is, and it's a strong word at that, Jimmy Kimmel is next to go in the untalented late night sweepstakes, which is alarming because I don't know if you know this, Jimmy Kimmel is me.
Thank everybody, and in particular, God.
Remember God? The guy who abandoned us on January 20th of this year, God grabbed his keys and left, exchanged us for another world, I guess? I don't know. You know, there's a rumor making the rounds this weekend.
Trump being roasted is like watching a magician pull a rabbit from a hat only for the rabbit to bite him and leap off stage. Jimmy Kimmel and Josh Johnson didn't just mock him, they turned his presidency into a highlight reel of bloopers. Their jokes hit harder than policy critiques because they don't debate, they just hold up a mirror and let his ego trips and craving for applause do all the talking.
This is getting to him because he did something today that he rarely does. He said nothing all day. There were no press conferences, no cabinet meetings, no public signings, no chats with reporters on the lawn. He holed up in his office all day long. He took one phone call from NBC News this morning. They asked about the letter. He said, I don't comment on something that's a dead issue. Really? See, you're still screaming about the election in 2016.
But trying to shut down the release of the files only makes them more interesting. So over the last week, Trump has been throwing every distraction he can at us. And I want to go through some of them to show you how desperate he's getting. Let's start with his go-to distraction. Obama!
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. Irrefutable proof that Obama...
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. The real problem for Trump is that his entire brand rests on being untouchable, the guy who claims he's always the smartest in the room. But Kimmel and Johnson peeled back that illusion and showed just how fragile it really is. Every time he demands to be taken seriously, comedians highlight just how unserious he is. Power might grab attention, but it can't buy respect. That's why the Oval Office didn't elevate him, it turned into the world's priciest comedy stage, with Trump as the headliner who doesn't realize he's the joke.
And shortly thereafter, Fallon will be gone. These are people with absolutely no talent who are paid millions of dollars for, in all cases, destroying what used to be great television. It's really good to see them go, and I hope I played a major part in it. Oh, you delicate, chubby little teacup. You did me hurt your feeling?
You really did hit his feelings. Kimmel has mastered the art of deflating Trump's balloon-sized ego, turning every self-congratulatory boast into what feels like a cringe audition tape for a reality show nobody ever wanted. He exposes how Trump approaches governing like it's just another spin-off of his old TV gig, only with worse ratings and way more chaos. When Kimmel roasts him, it's not simple comedy, it's demolition. He strips away the polished facade of authority and lays bare the insecure man underneath, forever rewriting his own script to dodge the truth.
Keen on sweeping this birthday book under the rug. This is the Fox News homepage this morning. Inside Epstein's infamous birthday book, Clinton's note, poolside candidates, and bizarre animal pics. You click it, you find Clinton's note, you find animal photos, you find poolside candidates, and nothing else. No mention of the President of the United States. They didn't have a single story on Trump's dirty doodle this morning, but they did have all the details on Paula Deen getting canceled in 2000.
Josh Johnson, with his calm and razor-sharp delivery, adds an extra sting to the takedown. His comedy works by exposing the absurd with deadpan precision, making Trump's bluster seem even louder and hollower. Johnson never has to yell or overplay it, he simply underscores the strangeness of a president more focused on sparring with comedians than actually governing. The more he draws out that contrast, the more obvious it is that Trump's real fight isn't with policy, it's with punchlines.
The problem with this distraction is that it's so old, Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't date it, all right? Trump has been going after Obama for decades. He's gonna need something else, something juicy.
The White House offering an unexpected health update on President Trump, revealing that he recently underwent a battery of tests and has now been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency.
Doctors tell us it means there isn't adequate blood flow to the veins in the legs, which can...
What makes their combined roast so devastating is that it cuts straight to the heart of Trump's identity. He doesn't just want the title of president, he wants to be adored, worshipped, treated like the headliner of a never-ending spectacle. But Kimmel and Johnson remind us that this show has no script, and its star is bombing. Every rally plays out like an open mic gone wrong, with Trump confusing noise for applause and outrage for entertainment. Comedy shines a light on the gap between the man he believes himself to be and the figure the rest of the world actually sees.
We make jokes about you. I thought you were against cancel culture. I thought that was like their whole thing. When did he become so woke? Unfortunately for Frosty the Snowflake, the only place we are going is to New York. Once again, we are packing up our Haley Bieber smoothies and headed to Brooklyn for a week of shows at BAM, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, starting September 29th, ending October 3rd.
The irony is that Trump sees himself as a natural comedian, tossing out lines at rallies and soaking up the laughs. But those laughs come from crowds primed to cheer no matter what. Put him in front of a real comedy audience, and the script flips. Kimmel knows timing, wit, and irony count more than volume and repetition. Trump, meanwhile, delivers punchlines without realizing he's the joke. That's the cruel twist a man desperate for laughs, reduced to giving them unintentionally. And because his ego can't stand silence, he always responds, handing comics fresh material on a silver platter. The so-called master dealmaker who left behind bankrupt casinos, flopped products, and a trail of chaos doesn't look like the genius he claims to be. When Kimmel amplifies those failures, he turns them into full-blown comedy bits, stripping away any illusion of authority. It's not just that the emperor has no clothes, it's that his closet is stocked with punchlines waiting to be unpacked. With every laugh, Trump becomes less of a leader and more of a running gag.
The fact of the matter is, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were close friends and gross friends. This book, Trump says that he wasn't part of, contains some of the most disturbing drawings maybe ever. I don't know which one of his buddies did this, but on one side, the unknown artist depicts a man who I think is Jeffrey Epstein giving lollipops and balloons to young girls. That's in 1983. The next page has him 20 years later relaxing and enjoying some sun. I'm not sure. But if you zoom in close, you can see...
Johnson sharpens the ridicule by running Trump's behavior through everyday logic. He'll take something absurd like Trump rewriting history on the fly and show how ridiculous it would look if anyone else tried it. That's the brilliance of Johnson's humor. He frames the bizarre in such a matter-of-fact way that the audience suddenly sees just how far from normal Trump really is. He strips away the illusion of grandeur, exposing nonsense dressed up as leadership. What political opponents struggle to hammer home in debates, comedians can nail in a single joke. And that's what drives Trump-mad laughter doesn't argue back. It doesn't need statistics or fact checks. His own spectacle provides the proof. Once people are laughing, they stop listening to his excuses. The Oval Office stops looking like a seat of power and instead feels like a stage where Trump performs night after night for an audience that's grown tired. He paces, repeats lines, demands applause, but comics remind us the act is stale. Kimmel sees the desperation. Johnson catches the contradictions. Together, they spotlight them with a clarity that slices through spin and propaganda. In the end, Trump can't outshout a punchline. He can't rewrite a laugh. Comedy is the one script forever outside his control.
Trump has been doing everything that he can to keep those files under wraps. He's even got his friends in Congress trying to help. Mike Johnson shut down the House just to avoid a vote on the release of the files. Yeah. Do you understand that they clear Congress out for the summer like they found a dookie in the pool?
What makes this style of roasting especially brutal is that it doesn't just sting in the moment, it defines Trump's legacy. Years from now, historians will still debate his policies, scandals, and decisions, but the comedian's takedowns will stand out as cultural snapshots. Nobody's going to recall the fine print of legislation. They'll remember the jokes about his insecurities, his blunders, and his endless hunger for attention. Being mocked on late-night TV leaves a mark that even presidential power can't erase. Kimmel and Johnson also lay bare the futility of Trump's obsession with image. He boasts about success while standing in the middle of failure. He sells confidence but reveals fear at every turn. That contradiction is a goldmine for satire. And every time he takes the bait, he proves the comedian's right. His overreactions don't stop the laughter, they make it louder. Johnson captures that cycle by pointing out the absurdity of a sitting president wasting his time sparring with entertainers. Kimmel amplifies it by showing that the more Trump fixates on comedians, the less he resembles a leader and the more he comes off like a fragile celebrity.
Over the summer is if I'm moving to Italy. As I mentioned on the Sarah Silverman podcast that I got dual citizenship through my mother, who has Italian citizenship. And oh man, the MAGA gang went nuts.
Late-night comedian Jimmy Kimmel confirming he has obtained Italian citizenship.
Jimmy Kimmel's so scared he's drafting an escape plan.
We could see Jimmy Kimmel evidently leave sometime soon. He would say ciao.
How is he Italian? There's no way he's...
The genius of their approach is that they don't have to invent a thing. Trump supplies all the material. All Kimmel and Johnson do is repackage it to spotlight the absurdity. A press conference turns into a comedy bit. A rally becomes a sketch. A tweet morphs into a punchline. Trump might think he's staging the show, but Kimmel and Johnson are the real directors, and theirs is the version people remember. That's the unmatched power of humor. It cuts past defenses, sidesteps spin, and goes straight to the core. Trump feeds on attention, but when that attention flips into ridicule, it undercuts him in ways no opponent ever could. Kimmel and Johnson know this, and they wield it with surgical precision. Traditional critics bog down in analysis, policy talk, or history lessons useful, but hardly memorable. Humor doesn't need translating. It's immediate, visceral, unforgettable. When Kimmel turns a policy blunder into slapstick or Johnson reframes a scandalous parody, the audience doesn't need a briefing to get it. They laugh because the truth, stripped of pretense, is impossible to miss. And what's left is simple, pure, unfiltered ridiculousness.
President, even though he made a fortune in crypto this year, Trump did not crack the Forbes top 100. Donald Trump clocked in at number 201, or as the White House described it, first place plus 200. But he did take a big lead jump. He's up 118 spots from last year. Trump, according to Forbes, has grifted $3 billion since he won the election, just as the founding fathers intended.
What Trump can't seem to grasp is that ridicule outlasts speeches, debates, and headlines. A senator's lecture fades in a news cycle, but a sharp joke loops forever in clips, memes, and casual conversations. Kimmel and Johnson have weaponized that permanence. They know the replay button works in their favor. Every slip, rant, or over-the-top performance gets locked into comedic form, spreading wider and living longer than any official statement ever could. It's the curse of a performer who doesn't realize he's been reduced from star to caricature. The real sting is how humor flips the power dynamic. Trump built his brand on stage dominance, commanding the spotlight and refusing to be overshadowed. But once comedians take that same act and reframe it, the control slips away. What once looked commanding now looks clownish. Gestures meant to project strength become setups for punchlines. Bravado that once intimidated now fuels laughter. The power doesn't disappear because someone stole it, it evaporates because his own excess hands it over.
With distractions, what it looks like when they're fed to the media and what it looks like when they don't work. Because right now, Donald Trump is desperate to move on from the Epstein files, but the story is only building.
A major development just in. The Department of Justice says it is trying to set up a meeting with longtime Jeffrey Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison.
The Justice Department now putting out a new statement and saying if Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say.
Wait. You haven't talked to Ghislaine Maxwell? Epstein's accomplice? The woman he's in the most?
Every culture has recognized this truth. The court jester could say what no advisor dared. Laughter, sharpened, hits harder than direct criticism. That's exactly what Johnson and Kimmel embody today. Their comedy doesn't just amuse, it dismantles. A single satirical sketch can shatter illusions that hours of policy debate never touch. Once people laugh at someone in power, it becomes nearly impossible to take them seriously again. And for Trump, whose entire persona depends on being taken seriously, that laughter eats away at his foundation in real time. The brilliance lies in how their humor adapts across platforms. On television, late-night monologues cut through the day's theatrics with scalpel-like precision. The very words Trump hoped would showcase his dominance end up as the soundtrack to his unraveling. Online, the effect multiplies memes, clips, and parodies magnify the humiliation until it becomes inescapable. Comedy stops being commentary and turns into culture. Kimmel and Johnson also understand pacing. They don't drown audiences with constant fire. They let Trump set the rhythm, building tension with his grand pronouncements, then leave just enough space for the absurdity to sink in before slicing it apart with a single, devastating line.
There still has an Epsteiny little problem on his hands. He avoided the press all day yesterday until dinner time. At dinner, he rounded up the closest thing he has to friends to take a field trip to Joe's Seafood, a restaurant, to make a big show out of how safe Washington is since he turned it into a militarized zone.
Here we are. We're standing right in the middle of D.C., which, as you know, about over the last year was a very unsafe place. Over the last 20 years, actually, it was very unsafe. This city, here I am, standing out in the middle of the street. I wouldn't have done this 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I certainly wouldn't have done it a year ago.
And I also wouldn't have done it tonight without the 85 Secret Service agents.
Timing is everything, and they treat Trump's theatrics like ready-made setups. He tosses the ball in the air, and they spike it with perfect precision. The magic isn't only in the punchline, it's in the pause, the patience, the way they let his act unravel before delivering the blow. This approach doesn't just embarrass him, it changes how people process his presence. What once inspired fear or admiration now triggers amusement. The spectacle has shifted into comedy. Audiences no longer ask what policy might come next, they wait for the next joke. Trump isn't the storyteller anymore, he's a recurring character in a comedy he doesn't control. The real danger for him is permanence. Politicians can reinvent, celebrities can pivot, but mockery clings. Once someone becomes a cultural punchline, the image doesn't fade, it compounds. Every new rant or rally gets filtered through the echo of past laughter. People don't see authority. They see the setup for the next gagged. That's why ridicule cuts deeper than opposition. You can debate rivals, you can fight critics, but you can't out-argue a laugh. Comedy lands where speeches can't, and once the punchline sticks, there's no escaping it.